Oh, okay. I was like, uh-oh, did I do something? Did I click something? Am I frozen?
What
Hi,
button did I hit?
everybody. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. How is everybody? Hi, Tom. Hi, Chris.
Hello,
Um,
everybody. Gentlemen, good to see everyone.
yes, yes. How have the last 2 weeks been for everybody? How we been doing? Hey, Melissa.
Hey, girl. Wild. Last 2 weeks have been wild. We've
Last 2 weeks
moved.
have been wild.
We
Yeah,
packed.
last 2 weeks have been wild.
We drove. We drove some more. We stayed with Ken and Dawn for a few days and
Oh, fun.
hung out with some friends, and it was great.
Hey, Marie. Um, Yeah, it is. It's kind of been a little chaotic and twirly. Hey, Jennifer. I know, isn't that the cutest little pillow? Um, Kind of chaotic and twirly.
Yeah.
Yeah, not
Chaotic and that's a good way to describe it. I'd say. Sometimes I
yeah.
think there's just a lot when there's so much going on. You're like, ugh, and you can't really think about the like how tired you are or whatever until you're like settled.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And just lack of sleep, making products and just with the wellness center and getting that ready to launch and then the podcast History of a Honey is back. And so there's a whole bunch of, hey, Jonathan, hey, Jean. There's just a whole bunch of like stuff going on top of like regular like family and friend and life stuff. And it's just kind of
Hurricanes.
hurricanes,
Jesus.
tiny little hurricane. Yeah,
Oof.
fortunately we didn't get hit by that really much at all. We didn't even get a lot of rain. There were 2 tornadoes that were a little too close. Hey, Mary Beth.
Hey,
Um,
Mom.
Hi, Mom. My mom went to bed, so
She's
she's
allowed.
in with her dog watching Blue Bloods or something.
I love it.
Yeah,
Same with us. I mean, we didn't have we had a lot of gusty winds around 76, but little to no rain. But I'm just devastated for Western North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee, the Gulf Coast. So as much energy as we can be shooting over in those directions, they need it.
Yeah. It was and the crazy thing is that somebody on Facebook said something about how are they not more prepared? Well, I think everybody just sort of expected it to kind of lose steam once it made landfall, but that didn't happen, and it just kind of banked left and just slammed right into Western North Carolina. I mean, it destroyed interstates,
towns, bridges,
rivers,
Chimney
everything.
Rock, off the map. Yeah, and I think too with the hurricanes. I mean, you having been through so many, living on the East Coast of Florida for so many years, you really just don't. I mean, you can always do your best to prepare. Oh yeah, lots of that. You can watch the news and all of that, but those storms, they can only predict them as best as they can, and you just never know with those. And I think that's what's scary. I mean, St. Augustine's been very lucky with, we've gotten some severe storms, but we haven't been like nailed to the wall like the Gulf has, and some we've been very, very lucky. And when she's clearly off her meds. Well, I think Jen and I were talking about this, a couple days ago about how she's had enough. Mother Nature's mad. She's had enough. She's sick of the humans, so she's just kind of freaking out, and I kind of don't blame her. But the death toll will keep going up the more they're able to.
Keep going up as they find more people and are able to access.
But as of a few days ago, you couldn't even get into or out of Asheville unless you had a helicopter or a plane or something. Everything in that area is completely shut down. Whole Earth is not happy. I mean, Justin was supposed to be in a town called Mills River, which is on the west side of Asheville, last weekend.
Yeah, that's what you were saying.
For an event, and the night before, the storm made landfall. I called it. I was like, I don't feel good about this for you. Like something doesn't feel, he's like, it's Western North Carolina. I'm like, I know, I get that, but something's telling me this is not good. Fortunately, they had already canceled the event, which is great, but he had an uncle already there and he was supposed to fly out. He can't even get out. So like, it's a scary thing.
It really is. But the one thing that is so beautiful to see in moments like this, no government help. Where are they? No Red Cross, some National Guard. Dear God.
No FEMA, nothing.
Well, and along those lines, like there are so many people I'm seeing on Facebook that are taking it upon themselves to collect stuff. Hey, if you want to make donations, I'm going to be driving out as far as I can to get people things. And people are doing it. Like people are just rallying and they're like, we can do what we can do. So I think that's something that's been really lovely to see in the aftermath of all of this.
And I know, economy is hard right now. So I think the best thing for most of us is just to send as much good energy and awareness about it as we can, where we can. I don't know whose birthday it is.
Happy birthday. Whose birthday?
I don't know. The judge says happy birthday. Maybe it's his birthday. All right, so FEMA can't respond.
Now that didn't make a lot of sense.
Well, that's the thing I couldn't figure out either. If North Carolina hasn't declared a state of emergency by now,
I had thought that they had all kind of pre-declared states of emergency, like as they saw like the path that it was likely to take. So I don't know. That's way above my mental pay grade.
Way above our pay grade. So now that we've covered that, what are we discussing tonight? This is going to be your wheelhouse tonight, which I'm excited about. And like I said earlier, if I could find where my notebook is in one of these boxes, I would have a pen and a notepad, but I don't.
Sure. Right.
Hit us with what tonight looks like.
So tonight, guys, we're going to talk about mediumship for paranormal investigations. So we had kind of been dropping little hints on the Facebook page as the week was going along. Did a little poll, wanted to see how many of you use your abilities when you go on a paranormal investigation, how many of you don't, how many of you don't know how, or how many of you don't investigate at all. And so we could get a kind of a really good idea about what you guys are wanting to know. Most everybody said that they do use their abilities on an investigation, which is great because we always like to have this be a very interactive discussion with the audience. So as we're kind of talking about things as far as like grounding and protection, which is something that we talked about 2 weeks ago when we had Satori on the show. That's something that's very crucial in an investigation. If you're a medium, just to kind of protect yourself, protect your energy, especially if you're going into some of these darker locations. But we definitely want everybody to, drop it in the chat. Like, what are some of the tried and true things that, do you guys hear that? Am I going crazy?
My friends are telling me I'm not lagging at all. My friend kicked ass in the Wi-Fi department. Huge credit to him. He did all. He was like, you have no idea how many spider webs I had to go mess with in the basement today to get this working for you. So all hail to the king of the internet over there.
Good. Yes. Thank you. So we wanted to, that's what we're going to talk about this week, guys. So essentially that is kind of solely what I use my abilities for is only in paranormal investigations. I think once Andrea blew my third eye open and I kind of the shell shock wore off and I really had a time to assess what these were, how they worked for me. I was super excited about that because I know I love to do a paranormal investigation. I love to go to some of these super historic places. I love to help out the private homeowners. And I think my main takeaway from it was, yay, look at all of these additional, I'm the best piece of equipment I could bring on an investigation.
Totally agree. Even though I don't investigate, but I think in general, when you're dealing with a haunted place, your body tells you everything you need to know.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like Jonathan said, that he's still figuring out his abilities. And Tom, I'm still wanting to investigate, but I assume you would ground yourself. Yes. And that's actually something Chris and Audra are in the audience tonight, and they actually, Chris is one of the most powerful sensitives that I have ever met.
Yeah.
And the fact that he trained me how to be a paranormal investigator kind of laid that foundation of just how to do the job at all. And then when Andrea blew my third eye open, Chris was very instrumental in teaching me how to use my abilities in an investigation.
Yeah.
So one of the very first things that he taught me, even before my abilities really came out full force, was to ground yourself and protect yourself with the location. Now,
do you recommend inside or outside the location typically?
Honestly, I think it's up to you. It's up to you.
Personal preference, right?
Yeah, personal preference, whatever you feel called to do. I know that with me, I like to kind of, if I've never been there before, some mediums don't want to have a tour because they don't want to kind of be kind of given information. They just kind of want to find it out as they go along.
Yeah, for sure.
Things like that. I do like to have the tour simply because some of these locations are huge or they're very confusing. St. Albans there's the stairs at St. Albans Sanatorium in Virginia. There are so many different stairwells throughout that building, and they're so confusing. It very much reminds me of Winchester Mystery House. So I do like to, whoa, for real. Yay. I do like to go on the tour just so that I can kind of get an idea of how to maneuver through the building. Yeah. I don't find that it hinders my abilities in any kind of way. I still am finding out new information. When I am actually doing the investigation. And then after that, I do like to go outside and ground myself with the building by just kind of placing my hand on it, meditating for a little while, making sure that, we always do like a prayer and let the spirits know, hey, we're going to spend some time with you tonight. And we're not here to bother you, upset you. We just want to, talk to you. Let's hear your story. Yeah. But I also do kind of like my own private prayer when I'm grounding myself with the building.
Sure.
Yeah. And that just sort of helps me, I don't know what you want to call it, like dial in. And then
I think you're tapping into, because I think the one thing that I learned at our former employer is because the spirits told us, we know what your intention is.
Yeah.
But we want you to set it anyway. And I think, so I know, and I think that probably ties into like you're discussing, whether you're praying, grounding, whatever that looks like for you. For me, it was the intention setting so that I was very clear that,
yes,
like you said, I'm not here to cause any chaos. I'm here to learn. I'm here to,
right, exactly.
Learn more about myself, this play, whatever it is. But I think that the more you can do that, I think that sets you up too for being in a more grounded type headspace before you walk into a location too, maybe.
I think so too. I definitely think so. I think that like you said, they already know our intention before we even walk in the door.
Yep.
I think it's a little bit of, I don't know if the word I want to use is a misnomer or if it's an incorrect stereotype that the spirits don't like know more than we do. Yeah, sure. There's those residual spirits that are just kind of that energy that's imprinted on the building that are, they don't know you're there. They're not going to interact with you. They're just kind of repeating a pattern that they used to do in their living life. But I think it's kind of, help me out. Somebody throw a word out there. What am I trying to say here? It's
well, you know where my brain is. It's somewhere between St. Augustine and New England. So I'm not a lot of help today.
Trying to get it through the beltway around DC.
It's on 95 somewhere.
Right. Yeah. It's wrong. I'll just go easy with it there. It's wrong to assume that they don't know more than we do, because of course they know more than we do. Right. And it's interesting to have seen throughout some of my interactions with folks in this industry, we all have a reputation in the spirit world.
Right.
And if you've never been to a location, they already know what your reputation is.
100% agree.
So it's always you this is their home. I will never, ever, never, ever, ever not force this down people's throats. You go into a place, if it's not a private residence, that's a different situation. But some of these other places like Trans-Allegheny or OSR or whatever, this is their home. You don't go into somebody's home that you've never been to before and then just like walk in and like, I'm in charge here. You don't do that to a living person's home. They deserve the same exact respect. So, plus you're probably more likely to get interaction with them if you're going to be respectful.
Agreed.
Yep. Just by your energy coming in. So if you're marching into these buildings, paranormal guns ablazing, we're going to get down to the bottom of this and you're going to stop screwing around with these people, I'm going to call them out Zach Bagans style. That's probably not going to get you very, very far.
Don't be a dick. Is that
exactly?
It's, I think too, it's like walking into your friend's house or your family's house. You don't treat them that way.
Exactly.
It's just kind of, to me, a lot of it's that end of things I would think is common sense, but I think I'm consistently shocked at how that's not common sense. Like you said, guns blazing. It's like, no, you need to, and I think this ties into Tom's question. Do you ever talk to the land or the trees for information before entering?
I actually have never done that. That is a very, very intriguing idea. Chris, have you ever done that? Melissa, don't yell at ghosts. Don't yell at them. Because I've never had an attachment, but I have known plenty of people that have, and I don't think that is something I would.
10 out of 10. Do not recommend.
Do not recommend.
As Tenny says, try that shit in a bar and see how far it gets you. That's a fact.
Exactly.
But I think to Tom's question, I do that, but I think for me, I work with a lot of I do more shamanic elemental type work anyway. I'm working with elements, so that's kind of my go-to is to tap it, kind of feel the land around me, feel what's going. Now, I wouldn't consider myself I don't get information like you get it, but I can feel the land and feel what's on the land to kind of get a vibe for what's going on. And
for sure.
I think that's always a lot of fun. Hey, Miss Lynn. Oh, feel the energy of the land as I approach, which I assume comes from the land and all it contains, but never have directed it towards them.
Never have it directed.
Maybe we should. Maybe more people should try just to see. It'd be interesting to see. If you try that, let us know.
That's what we do. Mm-hmm. We're trying experiments. We're seeing what we can get. We're that kind of thing.
Yeah, we try shit.
Yeah, definitely try stuff. So I think first and foremost, ground yourself. If you don't want to ground yourself with the building, then you certainly don't have to. For me personally, it kind of makes my connection with the spirits inside the building stronger. But that can be a good and a bad thing.
Right.
Because like our friend at OSR got very attached to us right away. And remembered me when I came back a year and a half later. So which is fine. I'm fortunate in that he was a very kind of docile spirit that's there, even though he's in solitary. Yes. So I'm fortunate in that regard because I very well could have had the gray man
opposite.
be a little bit, have me fascinated with us and want to follow
us. Or the
us
giant guy at the end of the hallway. Yeah.
That big giant shadow guy. Yeah. So that can kind of be a good thing and a bad thing, but
that's kind of what I do too. And I've even done that. Like I'm having to learn, because you know about like this, I kind of shut off for a while. It was completely shut down. And then when I kind of sort of came back online, I sort of forgot. Now, granted, I don't investigate, but
yeah, you do.
Any haunted location you go into, like I'm like, why do you keep doing this to yourself? You get your ass handed to you every time, and not in a mean way, but just you walk into places you're not necessarily expecting to get obliterated with all this information. And that I had a really good lesson in that recently, that I can't ever afford to go into a place, whether it's an investigation or just a haunted space, without doing some sort of grounding and cleansing before and after.
Can abilities be gained through osmosis after a great number of investigations?
I don't think that's out of the realm.
Huh?
I don't think that's out of the realm at all. I think
I don't think it is either. I think that that's entirely possible because everybody has everybody has the ability to have these abilities. Everybody can do what I can do, what Erin can do, what Chris can do. There's just whether you are, open to it, because there are some that likes from, whatever kind of belief system we have or what have you, that it might be deep down a little further inside you than somebody else, but everybody has everybody has the capability of having these abilities. And I think that we've all heard of, everybody's got their sixth sense. Like you could just feel when someone's staring at you, or you just feel like somebody's behind you, or we all have it. But it's so easily explained by just sort of like, I just felt like, somebody was staring at me and, kind of a thing. Or, when you're going into a place and like, it just doesn't feel right, or like, this isn't my vibe. I'm not comfortable here. I need to go. Everybody has that. And I think we've all encountered that at some point in our lives. And that's sort of like, that's what, let's call it a gateway ability to the big ones. So yeah, I think you definitely, especially the more time you spend within the spirit world, at a location, like you said, the more you investigate, could you just kind of get those abilities by osmosis? More than likely. Probably. We spend so much time in the spirit world, whether we have abilities, whether we are getting downloads from spirit, whether we're doing paranormal investigations, that it is kind of bound to change you in a number of ways. So why wouldn't your abilities start to kind of open up the more time you spend in this world?
Well, right? And two, I mean, would you agree when you're dealing with, if you've got several people with abilities in one location?
Sweet Springs,
yeah. Everybody kind of amplifies a little bit, I think, because of course you're, like-minded already, you're into this for the same reasons. And if you've already got, it's kind of like, it steps up everybody a little bit when you get several people like that together.
1,000%, because Chris and Audra and I had done an investigation of the Trivet Clinic in Hamptonville, North Carolina. And we were, we were kind of going around, and it was just the three of us, and we were standing outside, and Chris and I held hands, and whoa.
Oh, I bet.
That was one of the most insane things. And it had been like, I'd had my abilities for 5 months.
I've
been doing this so long, real seems hazy than parent. Yeah, see?
It's true.
Like, it's just sort of, but yeah, so that definitely can happen. And the same thing happened with Zach and I at Sweet Springs. because his abilities are starting to become a little bit stronger. He's got new ones that are starting to come in. And when we were at Sweet Springs, we did the same thing. We kind of held hands and just sort of grounded together on the property. And that was a pretty wild, like he was starting to like see things he hadn't seen before, hear things in ways he hadn't heard before. And so I think together we do amplify each other. Do not hold hands with Chris. Got it. Yeah, for real. Tell you what.
I love it. Mm-hmm. I love it. Yeah, it's
and the really salacious part, Mary Beth, is that his wife was there watching us.
But I think that's what's so interesting about investigating. And now, granted, I've only done like 2, but I think when you get, if you're in the kind of headspace where you want to learn, whether it's about yourself or the location or whatever, then I think you also open yourself up to learning more from other people investigating. Like you get to kind of, I always try to take something.
Yeah.
When I leave, like, because, I think for us, and you've been doing this a long time too. If you ever get to the point where you're done learning, then it's time to get out.
It's time to get out. Yeah.
Right. Like if you're a firefighter and you stop being scared or nervous about a fight, it's time to get out,
Yeah.
But I feel like in a situation like this, when you get these opportunities to go explore these places with all these different people, it's also a really good opportunity to take something away that you may not have learned before you walked in on that space, or something you may add to your experience next time you investigate, or something you do every time going forward. So to me, I feel like everything is a huge learning opportunity.
Absolutely. And as long as you are still, like you said, excited about that, then it's never, because there is never going to be a time where any one of us in this paranormal industry is ever going to know everything.
Right.
And this is another thing that, especially when I was training to be a paranormal investigator, is, Chris and Tony and Audra and Cherie were like, there are no paranormal experts. If you come across somebody that says they're an expert, run the other way, because there just are none. There never will be. That's ridiculous. And I've found that to be true. The ones that call themselves experts are typically the ones that know the least.
Yeah.
Frankly. Yeah. So there's a beauty in that, in knowing that the lessons there will always be a new lesson for you to learn. You will always be learning from your colleagues and other people that you meet on investigation. Some of my best friends I met at Trans-Allegheny when we did a public investigation. Right, exactly. Not until we're the energy being investigated. And then we can mess with people. So I think, like you said, once it starts to be just sort of like, meh, then it's probably time to find something else. Yeah, time to find something else.
Well, I think that's, you're always, I think too, with the spirits, because that's one intention I always set, no matter, where I'm going. One of mine is always, I'm here to learn. I mean, one of the things Andrea told me about the farmhouse was, let the house heal you. And I've said it before, I will say to the day I die, that house constantly challenged me. Now it's the only really haunted, I worked there, so hard to avoid that. But I think in a space like that, it fundamentally changed me as a human, and it challenged me because it always forced me out of my comfort zone, because it knew I could, and they knew I could go a little bit further. I could, right? So you kind of have to, let yourself kind of let the place guide you, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it, almost like
I know
into it,
I know exactly. Yeah, lean into it. I know exactly what you say.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to be using your abilities on a paranormal investigation, always trust your gut.
Yeah.
Always trust your gut. Even if you're not sure what your abilities are if they're gonna, work for you that night or whatever, just whatever makes you feel comfortable, do that. If you're feeling uncomfortable in a certain room or with a certain person when you're on the investigation, whatever, listen to that. But then once you're actually in the investigation, really take time to just And I had actually asked Chris and Audra for their top 5 tips on using your abilities in an investigation. And it's wonderful because Audra is very, very talented and powerful herself.
Yes, she is.
But she and Chris had very different tips.
Well, that's probably what makes them so good. I mean, obviously they're married, but
right.
They're good together because they balance each
other out. Yeah. They balance each other out very well. And they were both, I mean, Audra herself was also very helpful in helping me kind of handle my abilities, because there are some things that like maybe just came a little bit easier for her in as far as the one thing I love about investigating with them is Audra, and this is one of her pieces of advice, is don't bog yourself down with too much equipment. And that's one thing, like I have a backpack full of equipment in case I want to bring a piece of it. But when I first started investigating, I was like, okay, I need a recorder and I need an EMF detector and I need a camera and I need a video and I needed this and I needed that, to the point where I wasn't getting a lot out of the investigation because I was so busy worried about
the gadgets,
running the equipment.
Yeah.
So that's certainly going to take away from your experience if you're really wanting to use your abilities on a paranormal investigation. Audra uses an EMF detector and her phone, and she gets a lot of interaction with that.
Yeah.
A lot of interaction with that.
Yep.
And that's just her tried and true. It works for her. She's comfortable with it. She gets great results from it. And she uses just kind of, her vibe to like go to places she's drawn to. I'm drawn to this room. Let's see what's going on in there. Oh, it's lighting up like a Christmas tree, kind of a thing. So, and that was one of Audra's tips, is just kind of like, don't get too bogged down with the equipment. Which I tend to, I've done less and less. Yeah, I still carry the backpack around with me, but if I'm going to spend some time in a place, first I'm going to, kind of just talk to them, see what I'm getting, because I can, as my abilities grew, now I can see the spirits. Now I can see them standing there. Obviously not with my physical eyes, with my third eye, but I know that they're there.
Right.
And then once I see them showing up, then maybe I'll be like, hey, can I bring out this piece of equipment? Can I, one thing at a time.
Yeah.
So the other tip that Audra and I have always believed in this as well is don't expect them. No one is expecting you to perform on command.
Right.
And if someone is, then immediately for me, I'm like, no. Yeah. So don't if someone's like, okay, Carrie, aim your, whatever over in this room and tell us what you've got.
That way. Yeah.
Yeah. Because quite honestly, that for me anyway, would make me so nervous that then it wouldn't work for me. I would shut it down just because then my anxiety would be like, and then just shut it down. So it doesn't, and quite honestly, your abilities are I feel like they ebb and flow. Their energy, right? So they just kind of ebb and flow in this really amazing way, but they're not always going to ebb and flow in the ways you want when you want them to. And that has to be okay as well. So it goes back to what Erin and I are constantly saying on this show, is you have to know your own energy. You have to know it. We're never going to stop saying it. We're never going to stop literally like pounding that into your brain. You have to know your own energy inside and out. For a number of reasons. You just got to be kind of comfortable in your own metaphysical skin, I guess. Does that sound gross? Metaphysical skin? The minute I said it, I was like, well, that sounds kind of gross.
Well, yeah, we're not like Buffalo Bill gross or anything. Like, put the lotion on the skin and then it gets the hose skin or whatever.
Yeah.
But no, I think that totally makes sense. And I think too that you have, I think the thing I'm learning, the more, because obviously where I'm at now, I'll be fortunate enough to be able to get to do more investigations and get to learn how to do it. And I don't know how to use the equipment at all. So I am excited to learn that end of things as well. But I think especially for sensitives who are kind of just navigating that, to not be afraid to call out what you're getting. Like, don't, that's one thing I keep having to learn is it's like, even if you're not,
it may mean nothing to you.
It may mean nothing, right?
Truly.
And that's okay, because you have to build confidence some way, get better.
Right, exactly. And quite honestly, 9 times out of 10, what I get truly means nothing to me. I'm like, this is what I'm getting. Maybe it means something to you, maybe it doesn't. Maybe the spirit that I think I'm talking to is like, oh, you know what? Maybe I think she wants to talk to so-and-so. You know what I mean? Like, it may not mean anything to them either. But
you have to, on that note, you also, I think we would agree with this, because I've learned this. I know you've learned this. As a medium or any sort of sensitive, you are a representative for spirit, not the other way around. And so I think you have to read the room. I know recently we were at a location, we were up in Fall River, and there was a lady in the room. I could kind of sense her in my third eye behind me. I knew what she was wearing, but I didn't get the vibe that I needed to be like, oh my God, there's I talked to Ken and Dawn about it afterward and mentioned that I felt that she was there, but I also feel like, I'm in their space, and not every single spirit wants or needs to be acknowledged. Sometimes they're just sort of surveying the area, keeping an eye on things, doing what they do every day. They don't need a call out every single, you know what I mean? That's just kind of, I don't know. For me, it's very much, I try to, and I think that's how I read the room, is I'm trying to feel like, what are these energies telling me? Is this something that they want me to discuss? Do I need, or do I just acknowledge what I'm getting on my own, and then I could talk about it when I've left the location? Because somebody, there's spirits that don't want any attention, but it doesn't mean you don't feel or see them either. So I think I'm learning to read the room better,
which is great. Standpoint. Yes, which is another thing that you really should make an effort to do. I know that it's and I think a lot of us who, at work, we have like trainings that are done, especially if like you're in a customer service position or a customer facing position. You'll have these trainings where it's like, you need to actively listen.
Yeah.
And they train you on how to actively listen, because a lot of people, majority of people, I think, they don't listen to understand, they listen to respond. To react. But it's very critical that you kind of listen, either with it be with your abilities or your ears or whatever, that you're actually listening to them, what
honoring
they're saying, if they're responding to, if you say, can you knock on this to let us know that you're here? Like, you're actually listening to them. Listen to the building. Listen to what's going on around you. Are you hearing air rushing through somewhere where you're in a sub basement and no air is moving? That's not normal. You've got to pay a little bit of attention.
Right.
And it's very important when you're doing a paranormal investigation to just sit and be and listen to what your body is picking up, what your third eye is seeing, what you're hearing. If, clairaudience is an ability that you've got, it's very easy to write this stuff off, right? We're kind of, as we grow up, we're taught how to make logic out of things that are weird, find the answers. And as a paranormal investigator, our primary thing is to try to debunk this stuff, find an actual earthly reason why this is going on. If you can't, okay.
Then there's something else going on.
Then we'll take a different look at it. But mediumship for investigation, it can be a lot of fun. It can be a lot of fun as long as you do it in a safe and a smart way. One thing that I've been working on in my investigations, now that it's been a couple of years since I've had my abilities, is automatic writing. I've always wanted to try automatic writing.
Yep.
And that is something that requires me to be able to be open to be a channel.
Right.
Some folks might not be comfortable with that, because that does open you up to a fair amount of risk.
Yeah.
If you're going to allow spirits to channel through you to write on a piece of paper, that does require training, that requires practice, that requires, but it's something that I enjoy. I'm doing it little by little. And as all of you know, I love to jump right into the deep end.
No way.
You know, Erin, I didn't want you to find out this way on the live show, but
Shit.
Chris,
I quit. I'm done. Show's over. No.
Right. I quit. The first time we went to Gettysburg, Chris probably wanted to throttle me because I was like, well, you know, we're here. My mom and we got there like a day before everybody else. We went driving around. We were out on the battlefield and looking at everything. And I decided that I was going to ground on the battlefield.
I remember this. Instant.
And when I told Chris, he was like, what? Like, I actually felt like if he could Homer Simpson strangle me, he probably would have wanted to do that. Because he was like, are you out of your mind? And I was like, yeah, I don't feel so great. And I didn't, like, the whole weekend, everything was really overwhelming. And I felt psychically ill.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm 47 years old.
I do what I want.
My whole entire life. That was certainly a lesson I did learn. Now I don't learn all the lessons, but that one I did.
That one, and you only have to learn that one once, you know. And I think too, when you're talking about like tapping into the environment, I think the other thing too for people, especially for somebody like me who doesn't have, that's a good question. Ken just asked, I think. Look at this.
Yeah, popular theory is automatic writing is done with your non-dominant hand. Is this true? Not for me.
Yours is dominant. I know a lot of people it's the non-dominant.
Yeah.
But I think it's like anything else. Well, they also say when I was learning about Reiki, that your left hand is always your receiving hand, and that your right hand is your giving hand. I am opposite. But I'm left-handed, so I receive with my right, and I put out with my left. So I think there's always exceptions to things. I would guess,
and I think it may. Chris, I can't write well with either hand. It makes sense because with that it would be your non-dominant hand because that would probably be easier for them to control. But with me, I feel it coming in through my soul chakra. Into my crown chakra and then just straight down because my giving hand is just my right hand, and so I feel all of it. Just in fact, my whole arm goosebumps down my arm when it's happening, and then I just write.
So, and I think you hit on an interesting point. I think for those of us who are not, because my jam's obviously more energy. I do occasionally see some things. I mean, but that's definitely not where my strength lies. Yeah. I think a lot of people don't give enough attention to what's going on in their body. Like, you hit on goosebumps or rushes of heat, rushes of cold. Your body's going to tell you everything you need to know. And I think that also kind of ties into...
It's so wise. We just need to listen to it more.
You got to listen to what's going on. But we've been so attuned to not do that, especially as women. That's kind of blocked out. So for me, I know it's like everywhere I go, I'm trying to, what's happening with this fucking meat suit right here, right?
Right, exactly.
What's shit show, what's going on here? And I think that also can help build confidence as you're kind of going through this stuff, because then you start recognizing patterns. Yeah. That was something I learned a lot at the farm, is you start picking up on, when you're sleeping in a place like that for weeks on end, you have to do that, because you're getting hit from all sides, because there's just so much energy up there.
So much.
And I don't mean in a negative way, but you kind of have to find a way to
You
like,
can kind of, I don't know. I don't want to say like overdose on it. Listen to the Edgar suit. Yeah.
Sugar water
in an Edgar suit. I love that. I love
that movie. Men in Black.
I don't want to say, I mean, but I guess you could kind of like OD on it or get too drunk or just take in too much.
Yeah.
You can take, that is, for me, in my experience, it's very possible that you can spend too much time in
a place.
The spirit world. Yeah.
Well, I think that's why, like you said, like the grounding, the protection, intention setting or praying, whatever it looks like for you. It's something that has to be, and that's something I seem to consistently forget because, I'm not an investigator, but you walk into a museum in downtown St. Augustine at 10:30 in the morning, and it's an old high school, and you're not thinking anything, so you don't ground because you're a moron, and then you just get hit from all sides. That was a big lesson for me. It was like, okay, I'm sensitive enough to where I can no longer just walk into a space like that. And I think the more routine that becomes, the better off you are. Minds are.
Yeah, I think
paranormal pines are. Yep.
Paranormal pines are. Yep. That is something that I call it as well, because that's how it. Diddy says there.
Love you, Davey.
Hello. I hope that magnesium spray is still working for him.
So
I
will respond.
That is something that I call it, because that's exactly how it feels. It feels like there are certain people whose energy or certain locations, certainly St. Albans.
Yeah.
That
not your favorite place. Yeah.
Not my favorite place. We are going back, but still not my favorite place. It just feels sticky.
Sticky is a good way to describe it. Yeah.
Just so sticky. And like it would take 700 showers to get all the glop off of you.
100%.
And people have that vibe as well.
I think some places are intensely layered. I think, I walked into, I think it was the first time I went to the farm. And when I walked in the door, it was like, and it wasn't negative. It wasn't, to me, the farm always used to feel very welcoming, kind of like walking into your own house. But you have to, I had to get past the it looked and felt stacked.
Oh, okay. Energy. That makes sense. Yeah.
Does that make sense? So like, it's 300 years old. So
that
was something that was weird for me. And the more places I've never really come across another place, but I would imagine St. Albans is kind of like that, where there's so much there that it's stacks is how I described it. But you go to another place where it's just one specific feeling through the whole thing, or it's sadness or whatever. But certain places you're just like, holy shit, it's got everything.
Everything.
And that's why I think the grounding and all that stuff, so you can handle that, because you will pay for it later.
You absolutely will.
Paranormal hangovers
are a very big thing.
Very real thing.
One thing that Chris said, one of his top 5 tips is for your mind prior to going or reading a location, make sure that you're focused on that and nothing else. And I know that that's kind of hard to do, especially if you've got stuff going on in your personal life or things are stupid at work. And, we are so busy, all of us all the time, with all these things we're juggling, that can be very difficult to do. But if you're going in and maybe you're meditating, you're clearing your mind, you understand that you are spending however many hours, 4, 5, 8, whatever, in just that location. And that's where, when we were talking about a month ago about meditation, really clearing your mind and just focusing solely on the location you're in, whether you want to know its history or not, and paying attention to that, that's going to help you. Grounding with the building, certainly, and just take the time to focus only on that.
Well, then things don't get as convoluted if you're focused on the one thing, because as we all know, when you start, you're not really kind of focused, other things, it can affect other things. Hey, Brendan. So that makes sense to me, the focus. And that's something I need to work on too, is focusing on where I'm at. So
it's something
we're having this, I'm learning a lot.
Yeah, it's something you almost have to train yourself. It's a just kind of an action you kind of have to train yourself to get used to, just like with meditation. It's not something that, you can just do. At least most people that I know just can't be like, okay. Some people are very good at compartmentalizing, but I don't know very many of those people. Yeah, you. And Jennifer.
It's not, nobody said it's a good time. It's not a good coping skill necessarily. But
there's that too. There's that too. So yeah, so that was one thing that I thought was a really great tip.
That is a really good one too. Yeah.
And then, like we were talking about earlier, Audra said that like having other like-minded people, you kind of feed off of each other's energy and just really boost each other up, which is really great, which is why I always feel this, like I vibrate so much higher when I'm investigating with Chris and Audra, because we've been investigating with each other for years and we know each other's energy so well. But now that, Andrea's blown my third eye open, it's different. It's on a completely other level. And so you can kind of, like if I have like an ability that maybe wasn't that strong, but with Chris, it's a little more clear.
Yes.
With him and with Audra, and because we just kind of like our vibrational pattern works together, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And I think that makes sense. I always look in the history, but I try to wait until after the investigation to see what I get. Yeah. That's kind of how I struggle with it, because I love history, and I especially like if you're I love the architecture of a building. So like, I struggle with, do I want to know? Do I not want to know? And I think that'll be something. And I'm assuming everybody kind of has a standard answer to that, depending on who they are. Some, like you said, some people yes, some people
a lot of folks don't like to know. Yeah.
Right.
A lot of folks don't like to know.
Curious to see for me what that kind of shakes out. Like, is that something I want to dive into? Because part of me wants to know, because again, I'm not trying to read the spirits and get, like I'm just tapping into the energetics, but I've been sideswiped enough to where I almost want to know what I'm walking into a little bit, just so that I can protect myself accordingly.
Yeah.
But I can't decide if that's going to be a consistent thing or not.
That's kind of how I look at it. Like I want to know ahead of time, but at the same time, I have a paranormal podcast.
Correct.
We have been doing this for 5 years. I can't not know. Like we are like approaching 300 episodes, 300 locations. Like it's almost impossible that I don't know something about a location. Yep. I know I may have forgotten a lot because if they were earlier episodes, and also, my brain is a sieve. Just some stuff stays, some doesn't.
We've gone past it and gone straight to colander at this stage.
Absolutely, yes. So in that kind of an instance, it's almost impossible for me to not know the history of a location, simply because that's my job.
Right.
But I also do want to kind of know what I'm walking into. We're going back to St. Albans, and it'll be the first time that I've been there since Andrea blew my third eye open, and all of my abilities, and they keep growing. Like tonight before the show, I told my mom, she was like, "Are you okay?" She's like, "You don't look really like excited to do this show." And I'm like, "No, I'm fine. I think I'm getting a download." And because my brain felt sluggish and heavy, and I was just like, "Why now? You couldn't have waited 3 hours?" Or I literally live in 10 minutes. Spirits
don't have time for this shit, right? Yeah.
Can we do this on a schedule?
Yeah,
but it's just,
Mondays at 4 is my preferred.
So
it's like the memory bowl on Harry Potter, but my bowl spilled.
Exactly. Yeah, I need one of those remember-alls, but I can't remember what I've forgotten.
So you just take a fuck it all instead. That's usually how that works.
Exactly. Yes.
At least for me, anyway.
For sure. Yeah. So Audra, she said she doesn't want to know any details on the location. Again, it's hard on the really well-known places, especially like Trans-Allegheny. Sure. But she still didn't really know a lot. And she had more clearer images. And to her, they come through kind of like a Polaroid. Like they take a minute. She sees it, but it takes time to develop, like a Polaroid picture does. So she didn't have like, imagination to interfere with how she was feeling. So that's another thing.
That's a good point too.
Yep. Yeah. And then of course, cleanse again was something you feel drawn to. Some people, like to wear a cross, some sage, some crystals combination. But if you feel drawn to it, connect with it, bring that with you. Zach, I love him so much. He is one of my best friends. That dude, no joke, carries 16 crystals around in his pockets with him all the time. Even at work. Yeah. I'm like, how the hell you're loading your pockets with rocks? But I mean, like, that's what makes him feel comfortable. That's what makes him, and he's a paramedic. So he sees a lot of not great stuff. So that works for him. I just really prefer grounding, being very clear with my intention, and just being open to what I might encounter. Yeah. In a location. Yeah. Exactly. He would weigh 100 pounds less if he got rid of his crystals. EMS pants have a lot of pockets. Okay. I'm sure it's probably for, life-saving equipment. Zach uses maybe crystal carriers.
In his off hours, he can use it for anything else,
Right. But he just wears his EMS pants 24/7.
Right, because you can never have enough pockets. But I think too, and like the point you're hitting on about how there's really no, if crystals are your thing or whatever it is, there's really no wrong. There's no like right or wrong way for whatever makes you like. I've gotten to where, I mean, I obviously have my crystals, but then Michelle Roos's protection spray and Mojo bag.
The Tori's, I don't.
Tori's necklace.
The Tori's necklace
is in my bedroom. Yeah,
it's on mine's on my nightstand.
Power in that.
Yes, absolutely.
A lot of power in those. Yeah,
a lot of power in those. Which is really, I like it because it feels like it. I will go in, like with the whole grounding on the Gettysburg battlefield story, like I will just go in and be like, all right, what do we got? Let's do this. I really need to be more careful. But when I'm wearing her necklace, it just feels like not only is it protecting me, but it's also tempering my full steam ahead tendencies. It tempers me a little bit to be a little bit more cautious, which I didn't expect.
Right.
And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Yeah. So so now I don't go anywhere without it because you knew you were with me at OSR when we did that ghost tour. Not last year, the year before.
Yep.
With Gary that I did. I was like, oh, the scary, creepy thing charged off into this room. And he was like, wander around. And I'm like, all right, great. And so I saw it in my mind's eye. I saw this thing cross the floor, go into that room and disappear into a vent. So what did I do? I went in there and I was like poking around and I caught the damn thing's attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really do love that necklace because it tempers my desire to know everything immediately instead of when I'm meant to know it.
Unlike me at that moment who's sitting on this bench going, I hate this.
I
hate this area.
I'll be right here.
The hell out of here. Like and you're like, come find this thing. No, ma'am. I'll see you not on this floor. We can talk about it then. But again, that's, I think that's why I love getting to do stuff like that with you, because you too also kind of forced me out of my comfort zone, because I'm definitely a lot more reserved about that kind of stuff because I just don't understand. I don't have a lot of the same length of experience time like you guys have, and so I know for me there's a need to be kind of an abundance of caution. I also think probably the last year of my life with everything that we've had going on is probably also banged that into my brain a little in a not so good way. Like I'm even less likely to kind of
I've noticed. Now you're real cautious with like everything. Mm-hmm. But I get it. I mean, that's a whole thing that most people have never and will never have to deal with, fortunately. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it really just, there was never going to be any other option for you.
No. But it's been interesting. I think, you know, when you come back online, because I shut everything down. I shut my business down. I shut my abilities down. I shut it all down. And it was nice because this year at OSR, I didn't have the issues I had last year. I had Mr. Let's give Erin a lobotomy every 5 minutes for like 3 hours. But it was nice to go back and not have any, because I was shut down, as shut down as you can get. Mm-hmm. But then I started realizing in that instance, but that's also the thing that protects me. Yeah. Right? Like that was kind of the only weird, it was nice to not be able to really tap into anything, but then I instantly sort of felt, and I thought about it after the fact, that I just felt less safe because I don't get that extra, I wasn't getting that extra information. So of course, coming back online, a couple months ago, we've had to sort of relearn some of that again, because it's like, boom, bitch is back, you know, let's hit her with everything we got. And it's thrown. So this is why for me this is a good topic, because we are back online and we are planning on getting
we're flexing the abilities again, because these abilities are like a muscle. We've said it before. If you don't work it, they're not going to go away. They're not going to go away. But they can become weaker. Mm-hmm. And yes, I saw Chris put that into the chat. Always be prepared to see and feel something that will scare the hell out of you. Yep. That's one of the downsides, because you don't know, and you will see stuff, smell stuff, hear stuff that others aren't. That is really, some of these people died very, very, very traumatic deaths. You may see that playing out before your very eyes.
There's probably a lot of truth to that. I mean, I had an experience in March that did scare the living shit out of me. And I think there's some of it is that, and there's some of it that I still don't trust what I get, but that's a whole other conversation for another day. But yeah, I think you're right. I think Chris is probably very right on there to answer that question for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, especially because one of my strongest abilities is psychometry. For those that don't know what that is, I can touch any object and I can get and the history of it or whatever. And in the beginning, it had to be the actual object. Now I can touch photographs of things and get a flash
see them. You can even see the photographs and get the information.
Yes, I see the photographs and be like, uh-oh. So when my friend and my co-host Laura and we had gone to London and Paris 2 years ago, and we went to the Paris catacombs. And yes, so it's again, for those of you who don't know what the Paris catacombs are, it's basically where Paris buried a lot of their dead during the Black Plague and, flu, things like that, because they just didn't have the cemetery space for as many people that were dying. So that they buried them under the streets of Paris. And you could tour that today, and it's really quite a magnificent sight to behold. But the fact of the matter is, you're basically walking through an open cemetery. These are human remains. And it's a mile long. Like once you're in it, you're in it. There's no early exit. You have to commit to walking all the way to the very end if you want to get out.
That's a hell no for me. No.
Yeah, it was wild. And they're like, don't touch anything. You can't touch anything. Like, don't touch anything. Okay, no, fine. I'm me. And I was curious. I wanted to know what I would get. And I just put my fingertips, these 3 fingers, just right on the forehead of a skull. I touched it for maybe 3 seconds and immediately got a flash that victim was a young teenage girl. She died of the Black Plague. I saw her last breath and I smelled her last breath.
Oh, God. Yeah.
It was not great. No, I pulled my hand away so fast, like it was burned. Yeah.
There we go.
Mm-hmm. Like
Carrie was
it was
sad
so
and
quick, and it was immediate, and it was like
intense.
You shouldn't do this, so we're going to punch you in the head with it. The worst of it.
So follow the rules of locations.
Follow the rules of locations is definitely
a thing.
Look at it. Like this is
incredible.
This is it. These are all human remains. They're real. Everything is real. The other part of it that's very difficult, especially for Laura, if she gets claustrophobic, that ceiling is really that low. It's very, 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 very. It's
so for me, it's not the skulls and it's the claustrophobia of it. I can't agree, Mary Beth. No, absolutely, hell no, I'm not going. Yeah, and it's again not because of what's in it. It's just you won't catch me in a tunnel, a battlefield, a mine. I mean, a battleship. None of that shit. If it's got close, I'm out.
Oh, dude, the USS North Carolina. Holy crap!
That
was a difficult. That was a difficult place for me, not because of the claustrophobia aspect of it, but it was very confusing to kind of maneuver around, and it's very tight spaces. And I am not a tiny person. I got curves. I got junk in the trunk. Fat bottom girls make the world go round. That's not easy to do when you're on a battleship and you're trying to climb down a tiny little ladder to get to like the bowels of the ship. I was like, well, this sucks. This is way too tight. Locations. Yeah. So, but that was another place that I was able to kind of use my abilities. Mm-hmm. And I just, when am I ever going to be on an actual like active battleship? Never. Right. But I was able to see what that was like, and it was really cool. So there are more good than bad things, I think, with having these abilities and certainly using them on a paranormal investigation. But use me as a lesson for yourselves that if you are it's one of those fuck around and find out things.
It is. Absolutely.
I should not have touched. That was such a disrespectful thing for me to do, to touch that woman's skull. Mm-hmm. When I was told, and signs everywhere, don't do that. But yet I was like, what am I going to get? Because that was a very hard lesson in respect for me. So what did I get? They basically shoved my head down in that woman's face as she was dying.
You got black plague punched in the mouth, basically, is what.
Basically, yes. Yeah. And I deserved that. I deserved that because I was so disrespectful of her, of the location, of the reverence of the place that I was in, and of the gifts that Spirit gave me.
Yeah.
So, use me as a lesson, guys, because that is cautionary tale. That is not a very cautionary tale, because that's not something I'm ever going to do again. Yeah. And I don't.
Something I did too many times. Yeah.
That's another one that's like, hey, look at this weird, creepy thing.
It's karma. Yeah. And I'm probably it's funny because you and I are like opposite ends of the spectrum, because I'm way too cautious, which I think hinders me to some degree, which is probably even some of that fear that Chris is talking about. And it's like I have to find the balance. And of course, now that I'm up here in New England permanently, that I'm going to have a lot more opportunities where I'm going to be put in those situations, and I want to. It's a hard line to toe sometimes, because you want to like step out, but you don't want to like do too much. So I think like I've learned a lot with this, just because it's going to help me in the future, because I am going to start stepping into this a little bit more. And I think that's really important. But I think it also comes back to, like you said at the beginning, is knowing your own energy
and trusting it. And trusting it, because you said something very interesting, not that just a few minutes ago, that you don't trust everything you get.
Not anymore. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Well, let's be honest, I struggle with it anyway, but I think not even more so with what we've had going on the last year. So I have to kind of start from scratch with that again. Yeah. Which is okay. There's a reason for everything. That's and
absolutely.
different perspective now, have learned a lot over that last year with that house and that situation. But I'm also surrounded by all the right people, to step back into it, I guess is kind of where I'm at. So
I think that's wonderful. Chris has a question for you.
Does it come in rapid or slow? The information, or what do you mean? I think I missed something. You have to remember my brain is not firing on all cylinders after driving up the entire Eastern Seaboard, basically. If it's information, it depends on where I'm at. If it's information about a person or a spirit, fast, very quick. Downloads is how I get it. I don't hear it, but it's that claircognizant. You just know shit. Like,
Have you figured out how many of the clairs you have?
A little of most of them. My strongest one is the claircognizance and clairsentience, but I think I think it's called clairtangency, where you're feeling like a stabbing, or you're feeling choking, or like how you feel how they died, or you feel what they went. It's by far my least favorite.
It's absolutely. To feel like you're actually having a heart attack when you're not having a heart attack, that's not fun at all.
No, it's not fun. I mean, like I had the choking thing a couple weeks ago from a guy that was lynched, and I thought but I hadn't had that in a while. I kind of forgot what that felt like.
Yeah.
But if it's information about a person, fast, like rapid fire.
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking dead ones. I mean, it could be live.
Just anybody. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Chris has another tip that I think is really important in mediumship for investigations, and that is treat what you are receiving as human contact, because cause and intent will determine how much information you receive. And I think that's very important. Because they were human, right? Like, human. And again, this is their home. Just you wouldn't treat a living human in any kind of like disrespectful way. Whether they were, they're known to be a good spirit or a bad spirit. We'll take Big Jim at Trans-Allegheny, for example. He's the spirit of one of the criminally insane men that killed Dean in a very horrific way there on the violent men's ward. Mm-hmm. But you wouldn't go in there and say horrible, awful things to this individual when he was living. As a spirit, like you shouldn't, no matter what he did.
Right. There's always a level of respect that has to be
that has to happen.
Tendered.
Yeah. You have to remember that some of these folks that decide that they don't want to live in the light, they want to stay down here, like Big Jim, are damaged souls, but they're souls nonetheless.
Yeah.
They're souls nonetheless.
And they were human.
Mm-hmm. So you have to just kind of keep that in the back of your mind as well when you're using your abilities to try to communicate with some of these more dangerous, spirits of more dangerous people when they were alive. Because not necessarily are they the same threat level, not that they're a spirit. Now, that's not to say that all of them are, have regret. The theory that the staff at Trans-Allegheny has about Big Jim is that he is very regretful and very remorseful about what they did to Dean. And he doesn't like to be asked about it. And so they are very respectful of him, and they don't. But of course, you're going to have people coming in, especially when they open up public investigations, that are going to be kind of Zach Bagans-y and be like, hey, what are you going to do now? You're stuck here, blah, blah, kind of a thing. But I think it's important, especially that since we're mediums, that we have the respect in remembering that these are souls.
We have to do better.
Yeah.
You get a choice every time you walk into a spot. I mean, you and I had a situation that started with you, which turned into a whole thing, and he was real big mad. And we could have taken that and been mad back or beat our chest about it, but it was like, okay, he's got an issue. We need to figure out what this issue. Yeah. He's mad. He's yelling at us, but he's not actually yelling at us. He's trying to get someone to understand.
He's just trying to like get the message across that this is a kind of a crisis.
Correct. And so, you know, and maybe their delivery isn't great, or maybe their tactics aren't great, but you know, different time periods, different, you know, whatever.
Well, and quite honestly, in that kind of a situation, would ours be? Because I was panicked when I was trying to call you and Andrea.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, was my delivery great? No. And then I was channeling him. It was a whole thing.
It was a whole thing.
Which is when I found out I could channel. That was when I was like, oh, we do this now.
And then I had a stalker for a year that wasn't living. Yeah, that was fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a good time.
But again, on the flip, you know, on that, even with the attachment I dealt with at the farm, that was something that had, once we figured it out and figured out who it was, that was something that had to be very carefully handled. Because you want to, you know, because I think your first instinct is, oh God, get somebody to just rip it out of me. And I don't mean exorcism or any, what I was dealing with was not demonic, just for the record. It was a human living woman, or formerly living woman in the 1700s. I think, but it was, you have to think about, like in that situation for me, it was like, okay, you know, call the people who know more than you. My first call were the Heinzens. Mm-hmm. And then my second call was Michelle Roos. You already kind of knew what was going on, so you already knew what was up. But you know, that's the other thing. If you find yourself in a position where you're out of your element, don't just try shit. Call people who know what the hell they're doing, right?
Yeah.
And one of the pieces of advice that Michelle gave me with this attachment was, I don't feel like doing like a cord cutting or forcing her energy off of you is the right move. And the reason is she needs a voice. She's trying, you know, she's angry with you because of the situation, but she's really she's using you because she needs your voice. Like you got, you know, and so we spent, what did I spend? 4 months?
4 months, so? 4 or 5. Yeah. 4 or 5.
Working with her every day. And, you know, like finally she did let go. But it was, we were trying to come at it in what's the best situation for her that also doesn't harm me.
Injure or harm you in any kind of way. Yeah.
Correct. How can we level this out for both of us without just making a snap decision because you've had an attachment for months? Like, I think that, but that also ties back into leading with spirit first. Like that's
exactly.
I think that's super important.
And I think Mary Beth she's got a comment here that I think the angry spirits are what people call demons, and I could not agree more. I couldn't agree more. She also said that there are spirits who are not regretful. They could be dangerous if you piss them off. And I know that I know that to be true. And the reason I know that to be true is very, very weird. Because, well, all of this is weird. That's what the freaking show is called. But I can see spirits in any kind of situation. So, for example, when Project Fear went back to Sweet Springs Sanitarium, I saw all of the slaves down in the slave quarters on the TV. And I was like, oh boy, now that's new. That
happens to me. Video, for whatever reason. I can see, I pick up a lot more on screen for whatever reason.
I mean, they were just lining the halls, peeking out the doors. There were tons of them. I was like, oh my God. But I watched, and you guys, I talk a lot of crap about Zach Bagans, and his show is kind of stupid, but sometimes he does get good evidence, and sometimes I do have to use him as a source on history of a haunting, which I hate to say, but there, I said it.
It is what it is. Hey, she's honest at least.
They investigated the Hotel Cecil, and he had a psychic, I think it was Patty Negri, I think. That he put in the room that Richard Ramirez stayed in without telling her what it was. And she got it like that. Like immediately she was like, oh, this is not great. But I saw Richard Ramirez there in the Hotel Cecil. Yeah. And he is one of those spirits that is not remorseful. No. He is not, he has no regret. He is he's still very, very angry. Now, again, guys, he is still a soul.
Right.
He's a very damaged, broken, twisted soul, but he is still a soul. But yeah, no, he's one of these people that Mary Beth is talking about. He doesn't give a fuck.
Not one I would want to entertain.
Such a huge shame.
Just personal opinion. I don't. That kind of person does scare me to death. I mean, really, we're running into Manson. And like, why I agree with you. A soul is a soul is a soul for sure.
But some of them have.
That's not one I'd want to tangle with.
Twisted themselves in such a way that it's just.
Yeah, that's really bad.
So he's definitely one. So there are souls like that. Mm-hmm. Whereas, like I said, with Big Jim at Trans Allegheny, he seems to be very remorseful. Doesn't like to talk about it. So you do have to watch out for the ones that are the serial killers that don't give a tiny tinker's damn what they did in this last life.
Right.
It can be scary. So it when you're using your abilities in an investigation, certainly be very mindful of that. And if you come across something that you feel is just no good in any way, shape, or form, stay away from it. Stay away from it. Now, it might follow you, but you have the power to block them and push them away. Right. So I don't want it to come across as like, well, just run and hide, because you can actually block them from continuing to follow you any further. It does take a little bit of work. It does work differently for everybody else, but it can be done. Yeah. And if you guys do that, certainly set a boundary. And for those of you watching, drop it in the comments. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
When you know that there is something not good poking around you, how do you put that wall down so that they can't come any closer to you? Do you expand your protection field out further? What do you guys do? Yeah,
I would be interested in that. And if people are watching the replay, they can still put it on on the Facebook page.
1,000%. Yeah, Erin and I are always checking the comments.
Now that the eagle has landed, finally I can get back to
So protecting yourself. Yep, that's it. And Chris said, if I'm placing my hand on a wall or a floor, helps me connect with the energy of the location, and that's what he trained me to do. So that's what I do. And then don't think too much. It muddles up what you're receiving. Spit it out as you receive it, and do not expound past what you're receiving. Don't try to
Smart.
if you like with that one thing that you sent me the other day, and you were like, hey, just wanted to see what you got off of this. And I was like, all right, let's see what I got. Okay. A hole with a metal ladder going down in it, a dirty man that looked like a miner, a lady in a blue dress with red polka dots, touching the object. That was it. And I'm like, I don't know. None of this correlates to me in any kind of way, but that's what I got. And then it wasn't like I tried to search in my mind for the meaning of where did the hole go?
Right.
What was this guy? What it was, to me, he was dirty and he looked like a miner. Like he might've been working in a mine. Right. So, do that. Just, over time, as you do more investigations and you are using your abilities, maybe you don't want to use all of them. Maybe you only want to use one. Like maybe you only want to use psychometry. That's a dangerous one. So just kind of, never know what your flash you're going to get when
go easy with that one, right? Yeah.
Maybe you want to, just close your eyes and just open up your mind to envision what the place looked like when it was open and functioning.
Right.
If you're not doing a private residence case, that's a whole nother episode. That's a whole different show of private residence cases. But just kind of envision what it was like, and before you know it, you'll start to hear
what's going on.
You'll start to hear, and you'll see. One of my favorite things about Phelps Dodge Hospital is you can always hear gurneys going down the hallway. And I actually think Destination Fear captured that when they were there. You can also hear
in the beeping. of the machines,
beeping of the machines, and then like the heels of the nurses walking on the floor. Like you could hear high heels walking. It was one of my most captured EVPs were those sounds, but you can hear those gurneys. It was,
awesome.
Yeah. And you just have to like, just be a part of the building.
Yeah.
And
that's really good. I mean,
hey Jerry.
Can you believe we're already coming up on an hour and a half?
An hour and a half.
Do you want me? Did we hit all the big points?
I believe we did. I went through, because I was looking through Chris and Audra's, and we talked about all of their so spirits will tell you when to keep distance. Like the last time I went to the mill, I could only go so far in one room. The pressure and feeling of needing. Yeah, that's the other thing too. Listen to those spirits when you get that vibe that they don't want you going in a room. Don't
honor it.
Do it. Don't go in the room.
Or if they tell you there's a tick in your bed, get out of your bed because there's in fact a tick in your bed.
That was gross.
That was ridiculous. But it saved me from a tick bite.
It did save you from a tick bite.
It did. And so I think always listening to your gut and what you feel like they're telling you. You can't go wrong, in my opinion.
No, I don't think
I'm excited. I'm excited to show my ridiculous meme, even though it has zero to do.
Oh, I thought I was going to lose our sweary affirmations. Do you guys have any other questions? I feel like I hope we covered everything that kind of pertains to mediumship on investigations.
But of course, if other stuff comes up, just after the show or whatever, you can always message us or in the Facebook group.
Yeah,
or comment on here. We try to check the comments later after the show's over.
Hold on.
But I learned a lot, and that was good because I'm going to be doing more of this. So I'm glad that this ended up being the topic that we went with.
Yeah, I agree. I love the show so much because there's so much audience interaction, and it's so fun. So yeah, you guys have any other questions or yeah, Erin, open up more and trust yourself. The energy you exude is profound.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. We're working towards that.
She's always like, I don't want to do a paranormal investigation. I'm not going to do it. And I'm like, yeah, you are.
Well, oh yeah, you think my crew up here is going to let me get away with that shit? No, good. I doubt it, which is good.
Good.
Thank you, Chris. That was a very nice thing to say. I will definitely keep going with that.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm really excited about our ridiculous meme for the week. And
yes, and then we got to do our fact or faked.
Fact or faked.
And then our manifestation for the next 2 weeks.
And this.
I love that
I do too.
Little ditty. Okay, guys. So every episode we do at the end, we do fact or fake, where we tell you a statement and you let us know if it is fact or faked. So this week's fact or faked. Let me see. I have a number of them. I'm just trying to decide which one I want to throw out at you. It is true that when you go to a location and do an investigation with it, that when you leave and you go home and you get back to your normal life and you're reviewing your evidence, it's true that that building remembers you and knows your energy and actually can know where you are and kind of give you a link to it. Like you have this cosmic link. It's true that the building and the spirits themselves in that building know where you're at because they can pick up on your energy ID or signature, I guess. Is that fact? Or is that fake?
Answers are coming in. Jerry's fact.
Jonathan's fact. What do we think? Can a location truly know where you are after you have left it? No matter where in the world you go. Fact. Melissa?
Yeah. How do you prove it?
How do you
Well, let me tell you a little story about what happened to me. No, I'm just kidding. For personal experience, I'm going with fact.
Yes.
It's happened to me. It has absolutely happened to me.
Me too. Me as well. I would say yes, that is fact. Everybody, like Chris said, like with you, your energy is very specific, and my energy comes out in my personality. We all, like you love to say, we glow differently to them. And so I do think, and I, especially with St. Albans, man, I could feel that building pulse long after I was home, and I could feel that there was that connection. It just sort of like identified and could pick out my energy and knew where I was.
Yeah.
So yes, see, got in new places, spirits knew my name. So while that is something, like Chris said, how do you prove it? Well, you know, that's not something that, you know, where we were talking with Satori last week, where, you know, the size of the crystal matters how powerful it is. That was fake. But
unless you're choosing about like weapon strength, then there's definitely size matters.
Sure.
Not energetically, at least, right?
But yeah. But with this, no, it's hard to prove it. Almost near impossible. But it is definitely something that I think at some point we are all going to experience.
Yeah.
And I love Allegheny so much, but it wasn't. St. Albans was the one. And I knew that the minute I called her and was like, "Hey, do you have Saturdays in April 2025 open?" That building kind of, if a building could like turn their head and look at you, it did with me. So 2 ladies saying size doesn't matter is fate.
We have to rename this podcast now.
Listen. I'm not going to say he's wrong or right. I'm just going to say that he is one of the most powerful sensitives I have ever met, and he's probably not wrong.
Probably not wrong. Yeah, agreed.
So Zach, you worried me after St. Albans. Yeah, that was a rough time.
Yeah,
I'm glad that this next time that we're going back to St. Albans, I'm gonna make it so that it is a time when Chris and Audra can go, because I feel like that's the only time I would go back is with them, because I really feel like I would be safer.
Well, Chris is, I mean, obviously he's a powerful sensitive, but he's also an incredibly powerful protector as well. So yeah, that's important.
And he looks like Dave Bautista, who's really hot. I'm always telling Audra, good job on the hot husband.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, before we go,
what?
I'm gonna show my little.
Oh, this is our meme for the week, guys.
Shit! Sorry, I hit the button too fast. I'm sure everybody on Facebook has seen this, but for whatever reason, now that we're in spooky season, this shit makes me laugh. So here we go.
I love it so much. Me, Sage's the house, ghost. Wow. Me, puts up ghost Halloween decorations. Wow. It's the best.
That's my ridiculous one.
It is absolutely the best. So that was our fact or fake. I think the majority of us think that is a fact. And then we did our meme, and then we're going to do our little sweary affirmations for the next 2 weeks. We pull a card. It's sort of similar to what Cody and Satori do, in no way in just that we're showing you a card. That's pretty much where the similarity ends.
Minus the accent. Cody's pads.
Yes. Yeah. So this is our affirmation for the next 2 weeks, guys. And then tomorrow, we and Erin and I talked about this yesterday. We forgot last week to drop the screw humility, brag about yourself last Friday, but we had some stuff going on. Packing, hurricane. It was a thing, but we'll put it up tomorrow.
We'll get it up tomorrow for sure.
While I'm picking a card, remind everybody what Screw Humility Fridays are.
So Screw Humility Fridays is a good way for us to give everybody the chance to talk about something they're stoked about or proud of, or an accomplishment or a business or a product. It's just a good day for us. That's the day we pick to be able to brag about whatever the fuck you want to.
Whatever you want. Yeah. You got a new great pair of shoes and it makes your ass look amazing. We will hear about it.
We want to know.
Come on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? You got a new pair of EMS pants with 5 new pockets for bigger crystals? Tell us about it.
It's a win.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm going to split the little teeny deck. And this is our affirmation for the next 2 weeks, guys. Take this into the world with you. Do one thing every day that makes you feel fucking fabulous.
There we go.
That's it. That's what we're doing for the next 2 weeks, guys. Take that and run with it.
Ken with the music. He's been waiting to drop one of those. I love it. Well, and also don't forget next
Chris
week.
just bought some pumps that makes his butt stick out.
See, obviously that's perfect. I love it.
It's exactly
next week, Cody and Satori are back next week.
Yep.
We alternate with them on Thursdays. And then obviously Dead Air is going to be on Sunday night as per usual, which is always amazing. Great guests on that. Great conversations with Ken and George. And then we've also got Extremely Strange, which I love because when I get to do a lot of fun research before we do the thumbnails, I still can't get over how much that AI generated Ken actually looks like Ken. And
the most recent one of Extremely Strange, I love that topic. We covered that on History of a Haunting, and it's one of my favorite. So
it's quite,
you guys haven't seen that thing. Yeah. Really.
Watch Extremely Strange. It's amazing. Ken, that's really kind of Ken's sweet spot. He loves diving into that. And I like it too, because I do the research for I like to read about him before they, for the thumbnail stuff. So we got a lot of great stuff on Dead Air. We always forget on the front end to tell people to like, subscribe, share, whatever else you're supposed to do on YouTube. I forget the things.
Subscribe, like.
But, it's great to see everybody. And I hope that I will look less road hard and hung up wet, as we say in the South. But 24 hours in the car will, or 25 hours
with
in the car.
A packed car, mind you. She's got an SUV that was loaded to the gills. So it was like just her and Bean just kind of.
And this asshole over here. Yeah.
Oh, look at him. He's so sweet.
Fun times. Yeah, he's asleep. He's sweet now because he's asleep. So. But we always love doing this. Great to see everybody.
So much. We love you so much. Melissa, thank you. Oh, you're so sweet. Yes. So don't forget, Screw Humility Fridays. We will drop that down, and then I'll put our little affirmation for the next 2 weeks in as well. Until then, watch Andrea tomorrow. And I think that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
I think that's it.
See y'all in 2 weeks.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.